Welcome back to Duckman Cycles and VW Garage. I'm your host, the Duckman. Coming at you today with the Duckman Cycles VW Garage Christmas Edition. That's right, it's Christmas time. Look at that. Celebrating Christmas. I still got my other hat on too, so yeah, I figured I'd double up and look a little silly this time around. And of course now it's fallen off, but you guys get the point. So anyways, Merry Christmas to all. Behind me is Eleanore, my 1956 Volkswagen Beetle who was storm damaged. You probably remember the hurricane story. Hurricane Ivan took this car, completely destroyed it, I rebuilt it, and now she's a chop top. But what we're going to be talking about today is what everybody wants to know about, and that's the engine. Yes, we're going to talk about the engine. So you're going to want to stick around in this video. You're also going to want to watch the end of the video just before I roll those credits, because usually I have been in the last week or so slipping in a little extra something fun to watch. So you guys are going to want to watch through this video and check out the end. As always, like, comment, subscribe, pluck the little dingle belly next to the subscribe button. That way you get updates every time I upload a video. If you'd like to email me, duckmancycles@duckshit.net, and check out the Facebook group page, Duckman Cycles and VW Garage. We'll be back in just a minute. Alright, we're back, and behind me here you can see the engine that we put together for the car show. And I mean, I quite literally put that together for show, no other purpose other than to make it look good. I did intend to get the sucker to run, but if you remember correctly, I did find a nut down inside the engine there where I pulled off the generator stand, and when I tried to fish it out last year, right around October when the show was, I dropped it further down inside the engine. And I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that, but you know, hey, somebody else made the mistake and then I made it worse. It's a good thing I just happened to be changing the generator stand because it was dented. Otherwise I wouldn't have gone in there at all and I might have tried to run it. It's probably going to be a good engine, but you know, hopefully something else in there isn't loose also. Now where that nut came from, I don't know. It was a little bigger than anything that should be inside the engine. So it's not like it came off of a connecting rod or something. So I really don't know what's going on there. But all that set aside, we're going to pull this engine out. And then down underneath my little shithole pile over here, there's another engine. In fact, you can see it sticking out right about there. Everything under here is on wheels, so that makes it nice and easy. I just have to move a few things out of the way. We're going to pull that engine out, and we're going to swap those suckers. This one goes back under the bench, that one's going to come over here, and I'm going to prep that one to run. As far as I know, that one has a brand new rebuild on it, so I think that should work just fine for me for what we're trying to set up here. I guess we'll see. But once we got it over here, we're going to check the oil on it and a few other things, and then we're going to try to test run it. So let's just see how far we get today. Alright, there it is. That engine actually came out much easier than I thought, and just getting a good look at it, and I haven't really hardly looked at this thing in several years. This thing has just been buried up underneath that counter. But just looking at the color of the case and how uniform it is, now I was told this engine was completely rebuilt and barely run, and I think there actually might be a little bit of accuracy to that. I mean, everything on it just looks spotless. And look at that. Even the pressure plate looks brand new. I don't think I was being lied to. I think they're telling the truth. I mean, look at the cleanliness of the heads. It's just, it's been sitting underneath that bench, so it got dusty. It got a little bit of rust on the cast iron cylinders, but that's to be expected. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to bolt this thing directly on. I'm going to pop off the valve covers, pull out the rockers, make sure the heads are torqued down properly. I do see one of these studs a little longer than the other. Sometimes that happens when people don't screw them in all the way. Sometimes it also happens when you just use the wrong stud. Looking at all the exhaust studs, not a single one of them is broken off. Intake studs are the same way. They're all on there. They're all intact. And there's also a long head stud here. Exactly the same thing on the other side, in exactly the same spot. Well, somebody had OCD. If they were going to use longer studs, they put them in exactly the same spots on either side, which made it symmetrical. How about that? Looks like we got an extra long dipstick on here. I kind of like that. I don't think there's any oil in this engine. No, there is oil in the engine. And it's a little dirty. A little dirty. I mean, look, it's actually still golden colored. So maybe it was true that this thing hadn't been run a whole lot. Now, I have not seen this engine run. I did talk to the girl that originally did rebuild it, or had it rebuilt with her dad. Unfortunately, he died shortly after she had this engine rebuilt with him. and they put it into a car, and I had the car for a little while, and ended up pulling the engine out of it and sold the car without it. Didn't want to do that. I was actually going to put it all back together as one piece, but this engine just looks to be in such good shape. I think we're just gonna roll with it. All right, well, let's go ahead and get to pulling that one out and putting this one in its place. I got my GoPro set up over there, so we're gonna do a little bit of time-lapse action. And oh, one more thing. While I was underneath the bench, I found my bell housing, and this is actually my test stand. This is from a bus transmission. They actually unbolt. I think there's only, what, 4, 6... there's the bolt holes right there, actually. Looks like there's about 6 of them that holds the bell housing on those transmissions. So I actually wound up with those in the starter, and I can actually run this engine where it sits. Just bolt that right on, hook it to a battery, and crank it right over. So engine test stand is pretty much anywhere I want it to be. But because I do have this body off of this car, I'm just going to hook it directly to the transmission that's going in the car. And if everything runs and everything checks out, that's where it's going to stay. And we're going to take this pan for a test drive without the body on it. That's going to be fun. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and get to work. I did enough of this. I need to do more of this. Alright, that came out pretty quickly. One of the things we need to examine is make sure we got the right pressure plate. The later style pressure plates have the little tangs on them like this here. The earlier ones have a ring. So we need to see if this has a ring, if this has a ring or if it has tangs. And the answer is, it's got tangs, and they look kind of chewed up. They're looking extremely uneven. Oh, I know why. Somebody modified it. You can do that. You can actually take the ring out of an earlier pressure plate and run it without it, like it's a later model. And it appears to be what somebody actually did there, except the idiot seems to have clipped some of the little tangs off of there. Well, anyway, I think it's going to be okay. It looks like from the rubbing mark on there from the throwout bearing that there's still plenty of meat for it to press on. So I think we're going to go with it. All right, let's go ahead and put that engine up in that transmission. Alright, there it is, bolted in. I've got to admit that it's a whole lot easier to do when there's no body on top of this pan. I was able to get to all of the bolts, including the one here and over here from the top, as well as the very hard to reach one over here by the clutch lever, which people usually omit. They just leave it out. They don't even bother putting it in. But no, I was able to put it in. Now, of course, my rear hatch should come to right about here, and it should extend past this here. So this whole area from about here to here, a big rectangle, should be a very large opening for me to get work done inside of here. And I'm looking at that starter, and I think it still might be a little bit tricky to get out of there, even with that hatch, because this bar is kind of in the way. Boy, it's dirty. Yeah, I cleaned it up a lot. But even if that is the case, it's not too hard to loosen the bolts, knock the pins out of it, and pull the bar out completely. So yeah, there's options. I've got options. Okay, we're looking at the engine here. We've got it mounted. I'm going to go ahead and put an oil pan up underneath the rocker covers here. And we're going to pop these suckers off and look inside of there and see what the condition of all that stuff is. I've never been inside this engine at all. I pretty much, once I got it inside, I just put it on a little rolly cart and shoved it up underneath my workbench, and that's where it's been for, like I said, years. Probably about 5 years. It's been under there for quite a while. Okay, let's go ahead and start popping some stuff apart and see what things look like inside. I'm pretty sure that what I was told about this engine was absolutely true. These rockers inside here, they look brand new. I mean, they are spotless. The inside of the head here, there's none of the typical baked-on oil that you see. Up on top of this, usually the bottom half really floods, but the top half stays kind of dry, and oil will just it'll turn into sludge and bake itself onto the inside of the head. And I don't see any of that. Everything in here is pretty spotless. The inside of the rocker covers, there's a little bit of rust, but I mean, the thing's been sitting for a long time, so that kind of stuff does happen. But there's no sludge of any sort. I mean, it doesn't look nasty. The oil that is in there isn't that dirty. So I think it's very true what she said, that this engine was rebuilt and not run very long. Not run very long at all. And that makes me happy. Alright, let's go ahead and start popping apart some rockers here. Let's get this head torqued down. That's something I like to do because a lot of people do stupid things to these engines and they cause them to overheat. They're usually right on the edge of overheating anyway in their natural state, and some people are going to hate on me for saying that, but this is not a water-cooled engine. Air-cooled engines do just naturally run very hot. And heads and things like that do expand, this stuff is constantly expanding and contracting, has a tendency to come loose. And this is something that happens on the fastback. In particular, it's the left side, the passenger driver's side head on the fastback, which would actually be over here, has a tendency to come loose. And I only notice it in cold weather. If I start it up in cold weather, I can actually hear the head go and as soon as the engine runs for no more than about 5-10 seconds, it heats up to a temperature where everything's expanded enough that it seals. But it's not the condition that you want to leave that thing in, because over time it's eventually going to blow a hole through the aluminum in the head where it meets the cast iron cylinder. So I am going to have to do a little work on the fastback the same way. But yeah, let's go ahead and pop off them rockers. Usually it's a 12mm bolt, sometimes it's a 13, and 2 of them. We'll pull those off, and then we'll get the torque wrench out and start tightening down some heads. Ain't that exciting? Turned out popping off those rockers, they turned out to be 13mm, which is kind of weird because most of my cars have been 12s. I don't know what the correct Volkswagen measurement is supposed to be on there. Unfortunately, I never split a brand new engine open from Volkswagen. By the time they got to me, you know, they had already been rebuilt 6 times. Those rockers, as I said, they looked pretty damn spotless. They look like they might even be brand new. Everything on that shaft, these things fit nice and snug. They don't feel like there's any play or any wear in them. So yeah, I think that's a brand new rocker set. In fact, I'm curious if they're actually authentic Volkswagen. Yeah, they are. You can see the Volkswagen stamping on it right there. So yeah, these look like they're brand new Volkswagen with very, very minimal wear. There's no back-to-back play. They're not sloppy. Yeah, these are good. I'm very, very happy with that. Very happy with that. That was a good find. Okay, I think this whole engine's probably going to be a good find. Alright, let's go ahead and get out a wrench. And I forget what size these bolts are. I want to say 17mm bolts on the heads, and torque them down. And I forget what the torque is, but I don't bother to remember that stuff because that's what manuals are for. So I'm going to break out the service manual here and check out the torque pattern. There's a certain order you're supposed to snug these bolts up in. Although they're probably torqued too close to what they're supposed to be, at this point it probably doesn't matter. But I'm still going to observe the recommended pattern anyway and get this thing torqued down appropriately. And these heads should be good to go, and then we'll reassemble the rockers. And it's starting to get dark outside now. I'm starting a little bit late in the day, and it is Christmas Eve. That's why I'm not running any power tools today. I'm trying not to upset my neighbors. I mean, I try to give them a couple days of peace. And Christmas and Thanksgiving are 2 of them. Alright, let's go ahead and get to work here and see what we got going on. Well, unfortunately, I had my torque wrench out here, and I had the scale, and I attempted to recalibrate it. And this is actually a ratcheting torque wrench, and when I started to pull on it, I didn't get past even 10 pounds, and the ratchet in the head blew up. Whatever gears are inside of there just friggin' exploded. So, that kind of puts a dampener on my plans because I don't have a second torque wrench. I'm going to have to warranty that thing, and I'm not going to be able to do that until the day after Christmas. So that kind of completely shelves my plans for today. Now, I don't know if that's actually a Harbor Freight one. It should have a lifetime warranty on it. I don't think they're going to be open tomorrow. I'll check that anyway. I know it's going to be a friggin' madhouse in there. But if that's what it takes to get the job done here, maybe I'll go brave the crowds and see exactly what that's all about. I absolutely hate shopping this time of year. In fact, I do all of my grocery store shopping, if I can, a week in advance, because I don't even want to go to the grocery stores. It's just, yeah. So, yeah, at a stopping point. Not very happy about that. Very sorry, you guys. I couldn't do more for this video. That's Zombaby, by the way. If you haven't already seen the Zombaby video, it's over on the VV the Duck VV channel, which is my other channel, by the way, where I upload my daily Q&As or my discussion videos, so you might want to check that out. As always, check out Duckman Cycles VW Garage, and don't forget to check out the Facebook group page, Duckman Cycles at VW Garage. If you'd like to email me, duckmancycles@duckshit.net. Check out my website, duckshit.net. It's also my Patreon account, so if you'd like to throw me a bone for some of the work that I do, give me a little gratuity, I really, really would appreciate that. Donations start at $1, you know, so not a big deal. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. Stick around. Here comes a little funny outro. Roll the tape. Go! And lastly, and I don't recommend you try this one at home, a baby. Just a baby. Oh no, help me! I'm high on coke. Shit.